I love Stardew Valley, and if you're watching this video, I hope you do as well. You probably do, you clicked on it. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can make your own Krobus. He's the best roommate in Stardew Valley, even though he turns part of your house into a sewer. Although you might like that, I'm not here to judge. Since we're making a sculpture version, we're going to start out with some kind of base. I'm using a white wool, which I'm going to first lay out on my felting mat, and then tightly wrapping it around itself to form a little cylinder that will eventually become our Krobus. When needle felting something, you want the base to be fairly sturdy and firm because you can add more details onto it that way. For Krobus, it doesn't fully matter because he's a pretty simple shape, but it's good practice anyway. Making the base takes a long time. About 90% of this build was spent actually forming this foundation. Kind of like when you're playing Stardew Valley, you can always just do a bit more, but eventually you have to call it somewhere. Now, when I had the initial height I wanted, it still needed to be a bit thicker up at the top. So I took a bit more wool and again tightly wrapped it around just the top part to give his head and face a bit more volume. You can kind of see it in the video, but in real life it's a lot more apparent. The head part obviously is a lot thicker than the lower part just because I added a lot more wool, but the bottom was still too skinny, so I added some more wool and felted that down. With the initial shape done, it was time to move on to getting the colors. Now, wool comes in a lot of different amazing colors. This is only a fraction of what I have, but for this project you only need black, so it's pretty beginner friendly. There's a few ways you could go about this. I'm wrapping it around the object and felting it down. You want to make sure to cover all the spots around your object, especially when it's black on white. Any bald spots are going to show through, so just make sure you cover all the different spots on your object. At this stage, our Krobus is looking more like a void egg, which is good, because it means we're almost done coloring the top part of it. Speaking of void eggs, it's one of the things Krobus loves, including diamonds, iridium bars, monster compendium, monster musk, which is weird but I get it, pumpkins, the eggs, void mayonnaise, and horseradish. Despite pulling up the wiki, I personally try to limit myself to how many times I open it while playing, but it's a good resource. You learn a lot of new things. It says if you give him void mayonnaise, he'll say, "This smells delicious. I'll eat half and use the other half to He can't say that. Give me a second. Alright, we're in the sewer. I got the void mayonnaise, giving it to Krobus, and he says, "This smells delicious. I'll eat half and use the other half to moisturize my body." Huh. At least he's smooth. Anyway, going back to the build, what were we doing? Oh yeah, I'm making the legs. To make the legs, I'm using black wool to make a little tube. You could use white wool, but because it's under a certain thickness, I've noticed a lot of the time the white wool will stick out, and especially on the black, it's pretty noticeable. So I would recommend for certain thin objects, just use the final color. And with some movie magic, pretty quickly, we end up having two legs. Doing a quick test fit, he's a bit tall, so I'm going to turn part of the bottom of the leg into a foot. Bending it 90 degrees, felting it down, and adding a bit more wool to reinforce the ankle. And pretty soon, he has two legs with feet. With the legs finished, I can attach them to the body. I left the lower part white earlier so I can felt the legs into there. And once both of them are felted into the side, I can wrap them around with black wool to make sure they're secured to the body and so that there isn't any white spots showing through the final product. With the legs attached, we can flip to the other end of his body and start working on his little antenna. Now this is just a piece of black wool I felted into shape. I was gonna do the original swirly, but that was a bit difficult to make at this scale, so I instead decided to follow what the plush version has and give it just a little J. I left two little wisps at the end to function as anchors to secure it into the head. I felted those down first, then I worked actually into the J itself, needle felting it down quite a bit to make sure it stayed in. This part isn't load bearing by any stretch of the imagination, and I doubt anyone's going to really tug on it, so it should stay in just fine. Approaching the final parts of this project, we have to give Krobus some eyes. This is fairly simple, just have to felt some white wool roughly in the shape of circles in the front of his face. Luckily on Krobus's model, the eyes are not the same size and they're not exactly circular. So if you make a set of siblings instead of a pair of twins, it's not gonna look too bad. I actually think he looks better like that because I'm the one making the video. The final step here is to give him his mouth. Originally I was gonna give him the neutral expression, so I took some white wool, laid it out in a line, and went up and down in a zigzag across his face. When needle felting, you can actually give a lot of precise details onto what you're making. So here I gave him his regular mouth, and I didn't love it. Now when you make your own Krobus, you can give him whatever facial expression you like. But after seeing this, I figured, he deserves to be happy, doesn't he? And unlike in real life, we can very quickly make our Krobus happy by stabbing him repeatedly in the face. I turned that frown, not upside down, but I curved the edges up to give him a nice smile. And with that, the Krobus is finally finished, and we can see how he feels about being our new friend. It looks like he has something for us. It looks like Krobus is happy with his new home, and I hope you're happy with this video. If you've enjoyed, please subscribe, it'll help me out a lot. I plan on doing more in the future. For example, that We Play Fish video should be out pretty soon, so stay tuned for that, and I hope to see you next time.